Hello, class. I hope everybody had an enjoyable Thanksgiving and enjoying their Friday this week. But today we are going to be doing a discussion over Phyllis Whitley. Phyllis Whitley was brought to America from Africa in 1761. Phyllis Whitley is going to ultimately be known as an African American poet. She was born in West Africa and sold into slavery in Boston. And the Whitley family actually purchased her and taught her how to read and write. This is groundbreaking information that many slaves didn't get this opportunity to be able to learn how to read and write and be able to think for themselves. It was always they had to do this, this, and this for their master, but these people took it upon themselves to teach Phyllis how to read, write, and do everything that is going to ultimately make her successful. But after they taught her how to read and write, they would later push her to do poetry because she had a knack for it. She was very. It was something that she loved to do. It was something that was easy for her to do when she learned how to read and write, and it was something that she enjoyed doing. And we'll discuss that when we get down and looking at some of her published works, where she pretty much says that it was just leisure time that she wrote all this, that it was for her own amusement. But to get everything started, because she was a slave, Mr. Whitley had to send a letter to the publisher with all her poems, stating that she was an African American, or she was an African slave, and this was all laid out. He goes into a big long detail about how she has learned this language and she's been able to excel in this language and how she's just moving forward with everything that she has. At first she could not send anything to the publisher on her own because she was a slave, as I had stated just a second ago. And her poetry will ultimately bring her fame. And her poetry was seen around the colonies and in England. She got to take a trip to England with her master's son because she was not allowed to leave anywhere without somebody showing that she was the property of that person. And during this time, she got to have an audience with a few important figures. She did have a meeting lined up with George III, but she came back to America before that took place. But she was also praised on her way back. She was praised by George Washington for everything that she had written. And in her published poems, she stated that the following poems were written for the amusement of the author. She did this all in her leisure time. It was nothing that she had to sit down and do. And she just enjoyed doing it. That's what makes it so special, that this was just something that she enjoyed doing so much that it made her popular. It made her famous in the eyes of the colonies. She was able to travel to England, as I stated, and she was praised by another African American poet named Jupiter Hammond in his own work. So there was this connection between the other African Americans, and everything just lined up perfectly for Whitley. Whitley, during this time, hit the lottery with slave owners, if there was such a thing, because when we think about slavery, we think about the Deep South slavery, how everything was so bad. And up north, it was not much better. But she really hit the lottery for it. She was able to get owners that taught her how to read and write and everything that she needed to be great. She broke through so many boundaries that African Americans would not be able to break through until the Civil War or even the Civil Rights Movement. And then shortly after she had her book published, she was emancipated, set free from the bondage of slavery that held her down. But then she ultimately died in 1784. She didn't have any children remaining after that. Her husband got sent to jail because of debt, and then she went into poverty, and then she passed away with an illness, and then her infant son passed away as well. Well, thank you. That's all that I have.